Hey everybody, it's Fahim Musa of RadicalTribe.com. Welcome to episode 17 of Radical Tribe. This show, as you know, is where you learn to escape 9 to 5 and create your own freedom by starting a business. I am very, very privileged today to have Pat Flynn of SmartPassiveIncome.com with me on the show. Pat Flynn is also the author of the book Let Go, where he chronicles his journey from being a laid-off employee to starting his businesses. And today on the show, we're going to be talking to Pat and delving a little deeper into that journey and understanding what the key success factors are for Pat. We're also going to be talking a lot about the entrepreneurial mindset. As 9 to 5 employees, we all always want to know what that is, what that entails, what it takes to become an entrepreneur. And it all starts with mindset. And what helps you get your ideal entrepreneurial mindset are habits. We're also going to be talking about habits with Pat Flynn, especially the habits that he changed when he, or acquired, I must say, as when he started his business. Another important topic is differentiation. A lot of you have asked me how to differentiate yourself and your businesses from the myriad of other competitors in your space. Pat is in the quote-unquote make money online space, which is teeming with competition, and Pat does a very, very good job of differentiating and standing out in that crowded marketplace. And his insights are so simple yet very powerful and definitely applicable to your businesses. So listen to what Pat has to say about that. Finally, we talk about challenges as well. Pat talks about his single biggest challenge in business. And believe it or not, it has nothing to do with business. So keep listening and learn from Pat's story and his wonderful insights. Again, if you want to you want to take a look at the study notes for this case study, log on to radicaltribe.com/17. That's the number 17. And you will be able to read the summary for this case study. Without further ado, here's Pat Flynn. Patrick Flynn, thank you so much for joining Radical Tribe. Very excited to have you here. Let's start off with your background and how you were let go from your architectural firm day job and started your business.
Sure, absolutely. And first of all, just thank you for having me here and letting me share my story. Back in 2008, at the beginning of 2008, everything was going perfect. I had a wonderful job in the architecture industry. It's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I had just gotten promoted to job captain, earning about $60,000 a year. And I was sort of a young person to be earning that much. So everything was going perfect. I had just proposed to my girlfriend. She said yes. That was in March of 2008. And then all of a sudden, in June, just a couple months later, actually, I got pulled into the office. And, a couple of my other coworkers were starting to worry about the whole economy and the fact that everybody was getting laid off. And, I got pulled into the office and my boss sat me down and he said, "Pat, you're one of the youngest, brightest guys we have, but unfortunately we have to let you go." And that was just a huge blow for me. I mean, just because everything was going so well and all of a sudden came to the screeching halt. I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I went through, a small period of just a little bit of depression. Luckily, I had a good support system and a lot of incredibly supportive family members. And my girlfriend, too, was very supportive, or fiance at the time. But what got me into entrepreneurship, and it's really interesting how this happened, if we rewind a little bit, when I still had my 9 to 5 job, I was studying for this test called the LEAD exam. And it's a very niche sort of test in the architecture industry. And to help me pass, because I tried to study for this exam the traditional way with legal pads and note cards, and it just wasn't working. And so I had this idea to put my notes online on a blog, because there was just so much content that I needed to memorize. And I did a lot of traveling. It was just a lot quicker for me and really easy to organize the information. So I put it on a blog. And I actually passed. I ended up passing. This was about a year and a half after I started that site and put content into it almost every day for a year. Okay. And then I just let it sit there. And that was about March 2008, actually, when I had gotten promoted. I had passed that exam. I just let the site sit there. When I got laid off, I didn't know what to do. And I just searched for stuff about online business. And I came across this podcast called Internet Business Mastery. And on that show, I heard about a guy named Cornelius Fitchner who was teaching people how to pass the project management exam. And he was making a living doing that. And that's when the light bulb went off for me. And I was like, wow, I have this website that I used basically just to scratch my own itch and help teach me how to pass the exam. Maybe I could share it with other people. And to make a long story short, after just discovering that people were already visiting that site and it was being shared all over the world, I wrote a study guide for the website and for my audience there. That was published in October of 2008, and that month I had made about exactly $7,908.55 from a little $19.99 ebook. And the coolest part about that is that it was all automated, so people could come to the site, purchase the ebook, automatically gets delivered to them via email, and they can download it, and I don't have to be there in order for a transaction to happen. And that just changed my whole view of internet business and what was possible. Before, it was so, I always thought it was such a scammy industry, and it's like car salesmen trying to just sell you like whatever. But here I was delivering something of value, and based on my own knowledge, and people were paying me back through purchasing my book, and going beyond that, sending me thank you notes and emails of just incredible thanks. And that just changed my whole perception of online business. And that's when I started the site where most people know me from now, which is smartpassiveincome.com, where I share online business and entrepreneurship tactics. I build new businesses publicly on the site, share stuff that goes right, share stuff that goes wrong, with the hopes that other people can be inspired to, break out and see what other opportunities are out there online, because the risk is relatively low, but the rewards are very high, and it's changed my life. And I'm just hoping I can be a little part of other people's lives too.
Wow, that's such an incredible story, Pat. So thanks for sharing that. I just want to back up a little bit and talk about when you started Green Exam Academy. First of all, you let's just make it clear to the audience that the exam that you took was the LEED exam. That's LEED, so you started off this study website, personal website, a year and a half before you actually laid off. And then when you got the pink slip, you realized that you can make something out of this. You're looking for online business. You figured out, you learned about some guy who was teaching people how to pass the project management exam, and that's when the light bulb turned on, and you said, okay, let's make a business out of this. So this is fantastic how you transitioned from a 9-to-5 job to a business. But let's just get right into the meat of the matter. I'm interested. I'm always interested to understand, how people in who are not happy with their 9-to-5. For you, it was different. You got laid off and you were forced into it. But people who are not happy with their 9-to-5, not fulfilled, how do they transition to a new business? And it's a different mindset altogether, right? I've been a corporate employee myself, and I know that in a 9-to-5 job, you tend to get a bit conditioned. In that you tend to not think out of the box sometimes. You tend to do what you're told. But when you start a business, it's a totally different mindset, and that's the entrepreneurial mindset, quote unquote. People keep talking about that, right? So in your case, when you shifted from your day job, that sort of mentality to starting and running a business, what was the change in mindset? Can you talk about that? And can you even talk about what an entrepreneurial mindset means to you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, back when I was working 9-to-5, I was conditioned, and I was ready to devote the rest of my life pretty much to this industry. So I didn't really even try to look for other opportunities. And even if they had come, I didn't see them as opportunities because I was okay with where I was at. And looking back, the layoff was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was just such a crazy moment in my life. I was really angry because I had spent all this time doing everything I was supposed to do, everything I was told to do. I followed the path exactly how it was supposed to go. I got good grades. I went to college, and so on and so forth. And even though I was one of the top guys, I still got let go. And that's, when I got let go and got over that initial shock, that's when I realized, what? I need to take control, and I need to do stuff for myself. And if I succeed, I want it to be a reward for the hard work that I did. If I fail, I want it to be because I didn't do something right, or because this was something that I should have done better, not something I couldn't control. And that's really when the mindset shift happened. And that's when I started looking for opportunities. And that's when I started to open my eyes and open my ears for what was out there and what people were looking for. And again, fortunately, I had this website already up, and I was able to use myself as sort of the perfect audience, as an example of a perfect avatar for my target audience, because I went through the same struggles and pains and fears and problems that people were having who wanted to pass this test. So it was this test. So I knew exactly how they felt. Now, as far as transitioning, for me, I got lucky because I got laid off, and it's funny that I say it that way. Other people, I really loved my job. I think that's what hurt even more, and that's what's even more scary, because if I didn't get laid off, I could probably pretty much say 99% of the chance I'd still be doing architecture, and I'd probably be enjoying it somewhat. But I wouldn't even realize that all of this what I'm living now was possible. But I know a lot of people, and a lot of my friends, a lot of people who I've spoken to and consulted with, they're in the 9-to-5 job and they don't like it. They want to be out, and they see other people, they are inspired already. And that's the first step, just understanding that you don't want to live the life that you're living right now, that you're in a place where you don't want to be. I think that's good that you kind of feel like that, because a lot of people don't realize that until it's too late. And, yes, you could have started something yesterday, but besides starting something yesterday, the next best time to do something is now. Now, what does that do something? Does that mean you have to quit your job? No, I don't ever say, yes. I mean, I know I got laid off and I was just sort of cut off from the corporate world, but I don't ever recommend people do that, because it's a little scary, and you need this sort of safety net, I think, is the best way to go about it. And I just read this book called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. Two of my favorite authors, they wrote one of my favorite books of all time called Made to Stick. So I recommend both of those books. But in Decisive, they talk about this question of, should you quit your job or should you not? And they take on the sort of stance that, that's like a ridiculous question to ask yourself, because that's a very, if this or that, and that's it. You have to think about what your other options are too. And you can sort of what they call ooch your way into, sort of transition out of your job. So maybe you just try something on the side for an hour or two a day. You don't have to sort of just cut everything off and then go dive in the deep end. You can put your foot in the pool and see how it works. And if it seems like things are going good and you get your first client, for example, or you sell your first product, then that's a good sign. Until then, you can still stay safe in your job and sort of use that as more motivation to continue to try other things. So my recommendation would be to, if you have a 9-to-5 job and you want to get out, stay in there. Try to learn as much as you can. Try to open your eyes and ears to everything that's probably the best place to find opportunities, where you're at most of the day. Like, for instance, for me, if I had my ears open when I was still working 9-to-5, I probably could have created this lead exam site and written an ebook even much earlier when I still had the 9-to-5 job, and then transitioned out. But luckily, again, like I said, I had got cut off. So I think it's the transition period, keeping your eyes open to opportunities within the industry that you're in. Maybe that there's a certain problem or some system that doesn't exist yet that you could provide. And then maybe you can have, the people who you're in contact with, or maybe your boss or other coworkers become your clients way down the road, because you've solved an issue that may be going on, that like everybody there is conditioned to do exactly what they're told to do. Hardly anyone is going to step out of the box and think outside of the box to try and make solutions for where there may not seem like there's a problem, but there is. So yeah, I think taking that approach is the best way to go about it. Just sort of slowly kind of transitioning out of it. That way you're not really struggling too much ever, or putting yourself in a position where things will go really, really bad.
Yeah, you know what, Pat? I think that's fantastic, and I totally agree with that, because a lot of people, most of the people I interview on the show have taken on that same path. Start a side business, side gig on the side, build it up, sort of build it up to a point where it almost covers your day job income, and then quit that day job. But I also realized that a lot of people, some people can't do that, because I just interviewed somebody who had been in the corporate world for like over 30 years, and he had kids, he had a mortgage, he just couldn't find the time in evening and weekends to quit a job. But so he had another plan. He saved up. His expenses for about I think 8 to 12 months or something. And his spouse, his wife was working, so they had a little bit of other income as well. And so he planned it out. So once he had that safety net, then he quit his job and started working on a new business from scratch. That's another way to do it. But predominantly, it's people. I would say that people should choose the other way if they can help it. Start a side business and then slowly transition that. So I totally agree with that. Thanks for that. I just wanted to get back to that thing about entrepreneurial mindset. You talked a lot about being angry when you were laid off. You talked a lot about, and then realizing that you need to take control of your destiny. You needed to understand what else is out there, what are the opportunities, and that's how you sort of shifted your mindset. So I always believe that to shift a mindset, you have to cultivate different habits, newer habits, right? So I just want to understand from you whether you remember, like, what new habits did you cultivate during that period? I mean, you obviously, when you're starting a business, you don't have a boss. You're your own boss. There's nobody to take direction from. So do you remember like how your life and your habits were changing at that point?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. No one's ever asked me about my habits before at that time. I mean, obviously, when I still had my 9-to-5 job, I went through the daily grind. And every day was pretty much the same. And when I had gotten laid off and when I started working for myself, the days were a lot more flexible. But I still think it was really important to keep to that schedule in order to get stuff done. That was one of the first things I learned, was that as much as everyone says, oh, like, you got to break free from the 9-to-5, or, you got to escape working for somebody else, you still need a schedule of some kind.
Absolutely.
To be able to get stuff done. That was one of the first things I learned. And I learned the hard way too. For a while, my wife and I would sort of get in these small little quarrels about when I was working versus when I wasn't. And also my mind wasn't where it should have been at each of those times. And that's something that all entrepreneurs struggle with. And I sort of figured that out early. When you're working, you want to be focused on your work and with no distractions. That's how you get most of the things done that you want to get done in the shortest period of time. That's how you become efficient. And you want to be efficient when you're working on your business, so you can do other stuff. When you're with your family, or when you're in personal time, or when you're with your friends, you want to be 100% with them. It's not fair to them to be also thinking about your business all the time in the back of your head. Maybe you're in the middle of a conversation and you're thinking about that email that you got earlier that you have to get back to. I mean, that's just not fair either. And so that was one of the first things I learned. And so I formed some habits of really trying to discover the right schedule. And it took a little bit of time and a little bit of communication, a lot of communication between my wife and I or my fiance and I, to sort of work things out of when I was supposed to work on my business versus when, that wasn't going to happen. And it was really tough at first because we lived in a one-bedroom apartment where my office was in the kitchen, which was open to the living room. So it was like hard to physically put myself in a situation where where it was easier mentally for me to be wherever I needed to be at the time. Other habits that started forming was I started to read a lot. A lot. Read a lot of blogs, listen to a lot of podcasts, read a lot of business books. I always made it a habit to look for success stories, because that was really inspiring to me when I first got started. That's what helped me see what was possible, what was available. So I really resonate with success stories and case studies. And so whenever I'm in a slump, I just look for other people who have done something that I'm trying to do, and I follow their lead, and I get inspiration from them. I do that, quite a bit. I also have learned to create these really productive habits as far as note-taking, using Evernote, for example, to keep track of my notes and sync between all my devices. And, whenever I get a new idea in my head, because, that's something that sort of came out of nowhere when I got laid off, was, with the success of Green Exam Academy and that first ebook, it was just so exciting. I just started seeing opportunities everywhere. And so I started to write all of those opportunities down. Some of them may work, some of them might not. A lot of them are still in my notes for later. And that was another thing, that's another thing that I learned about, was the idea of an entrepreneur wanting to do everything. And, wanting to do this idea, seeing an opportunity here, wanting to do that and do this and do that. And so for a while, things were good. I just had Green Exam Academy. Then I started the Smart Passive Income blog. Then I started this other site and then another site. And I started to get stretched thin a little bit. And that's something I think all entrepreneurs go through, especially in the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey. And so that's when I started to learn about virtual assistants and asking for help and getting support from other people who might be able to do a lot of the tasks that I was doing a lot better than me and a lot faster, or do things that I didn't know how to do. And so I can just focus on what I need to focus on and what I'm good at, and have sort of a virtual team working for me as well. And that has tripled, quadrupled my productivity, and taken a ton of stress away from me. It just made me more happy in life, I guess.
Wow, this is great, Pat. So this is a lot of information, which is I'm going to dig into a lot of the things you said a little later.
Sure.
But I just want to quickly understand from you your Green Exam Academy business. Can you just quickly talk about how you made that successful? I know you were getting a lot of hits already. It was popular because it had been online for like almost a year and a half, and then until you even realized that there were people going to the site and learning from it. But in terms of growing it from there, this was your first entrepreneurial endeavor, right? So can you talk about how you made that successful? What were the key decisions you made that helped you build that business?
Sure. I mean, when I was still working 9 to 5, I didn't know I was building a business, but I apparently did a lot of things right. And one of the first things I did was I just put myself online. I got on the internet, and that connects you with other people. And again, I didn't know I was doing this, but I was building the perfect database, or the perfect sort of library for everything everybody needed to know about this exam. And what ended up happening was Google loved all the content that I had. It saw I was pretty regular and consistent coming out there as I was studying for this. It started to rank a lot of the content I had really high for relative keywords for this exam. And as a result of that, a lot of people found me. And because a lot of people resonated with, a lot of people loved the content and it was helpful, they shared it. So eventually I learned how to discover where links were coming from on my site, or where traffic was coming from. And I discovered that dozens of forums in the architecture industry were linking to me, dozens of blogs, even the chapter websites from the United States Green Building Council were linking to me. And again, I had no idea that this was happening. So that's the first lesson, is just you got to put good stuff out there for people to see. And eventually, if it's good enough, people are going to find it. But of course, when you first start a business, it's not always going to be that way. And again, you have to remember the site was up for a year and a half. So it could have been under the radar for a year, and maybe only the last 6 months Google started to pick it up. I don't know. I don't have history of the traffic back then. But another thing I did well was I created a product. That's really what turned everything into a business. Yes, I did advertising at first. That was probably the first thing I did. I looked up, once I discovered I had all this traffic, I was like, how do I monetize on Google? And AdSense came up, Google AdSense. So I put Google AdSense on my site, and I remember making like $1.08 that very first day. And it was like the best feeling in the world. $1.08. I could find that just like in the couch cushions of my house. But it was just really cool to see that happen. And that motivated me and that kept me going. But what really took things to the next level is when I took a big, bold action and I actually wrote an ebook, created a product for this, something, quote, tangible. Yes, it was still an ebook, but it was something that people could download and look at and print out and study from. And that was huge. Like I said, I had made about $8,000 that first month, and the commitment to doing that wasn't always there because I didn't know whether people would buy it or not. And the interesting thing is that book is made up of about 95% of the same content that is on the website that people can get for free. And that scared me like crazy. I was like, why would anybody buy this? Why would anybody pay for this when they can just get the same information for free? So I went to my mastermind group, which I feel like is a vital component to anybody's business, is to have that sort of support group of people who are like in the same mindset as you, who have the same goals and aspirations as you. It was somebody in my mastermind group that was like, dude, if you create an ebook and it's well packaged and organized and convenient, people are going to buy it. They're going to love it, even though the content's the same as on the site. And I was like, okay, well, you've done this before, and I guess you know what you're doing. So I did it. I've sold like 12,000 books.
Wow.
And one person has made a complaint. One person. And of course, I gave that person a refund. But only one person. And just, yes, that sucked that person said what he said. Like, oh, I can't believe I bought this. I could get the stuff for free. Yeah, that was one person. But there's 11,999 other people who had benefited from it and have thanked me for it and were willing and happy to pay for it. And who are now, lead APs or lead accredited professionals. So that was another thing I learned, was just like there's always going to be people out there. The bigger you get, the more successful you get. There's always going to be trolls or people who disagree or customers who are disgruntled, and you have to handle them individually. But there's a whole group of people out there who are going to appreciate you, that is really who you should be focusing on. But as far as a business, after I had that initial product, I created a second product, and that was actually an audio guide that went along with the ebook. It was just, just reading what was in the ebook and selling that as an MP3 along with the ebook, either as a package or individually. And it's a funny story really quick. I had spent about 3 days recording that on my own. I had a really cheap microphone. I was like, hey, I could do this myself. All I have to do is read. And so I started recording it. And about 3 days later, I started to play back what I had recorded. And it was terrible. Like, the quality was just bad. I could not listen to myself. For some reason, I would still say and like in the middle of the sentences, even though I was reading. I don't know how that happened. It was really bad. And so I went back to my mastermind group. And I'm like, how do you guys do this? And they're like, oh, you tried to do this yourself? You're crazy. You should have gotten somebody who does this as a living to do it for you. And I was like, there's people like that? And they're like, yeah, they're called voice talents. Go to elance.com, find one. There's hundreds of them. And pick the one you like best, and they'll work for you. And then I put up a job on Elance, and I said, hey, I need someone to read my 80-page ebook. I need it to be professional, to sound professional. I needed each chapter to be in separate MP3 files. And then I had 20 people bid on working on my project, and I selected somebody for $1,400, a woman named Trisha, to read it for me. And again, here it was, just starting my entrepreneur journey, scared to spend $1,400. I had never spent that kind of money before, except for rent. And, she did an awesome job, and she did it in a week, and it sounded amazing, better than I could even get close to. And then I made up the cost in sales within the first 2 das after I started selling that ebook and the audio guide together. And that's when my income started to go to $20,000 a month, $25,000 a month, $30,000 a month. And it was just awesome. I mean, and then beyond the products I created, I hooked up with some other companies that were providing other types of products, like practice exams or live training, where I could sell that on my site and earn a commission from that as well. So that's called affiliate marketing. And that skyrocketed my income even more, and sort of added to my own product line for my audience and helped them out. And the best part about it was everybody was happy. I was happy because I was obviously getting paid and getting affiliate commissions. My audience was happy because they were getting everything they needed to pass the exam. And the companies that I was an affiliate for, they were getting new customers. I mean, it's just so awesome when the audience comes first. Absolutely. And providing value to them. Yeah. Everything awesome happens to you as a business owner.
That's great. So just to put some context around it, so what were the results of Green Exam Academy in terms of revenue?
In terms of revenue, it was about over $200,000 the first year.
Wow.
And then about the same the year after that. The industry dropped a little bit. More competition came. The USGBC came out with their own study guide, which at first actually increased my sales, which was an interesting story. And this is actually probably pretty important. I was doing really well selling my study guide, and all of a sudden I get an email from the United States Green Building Council saying that they're coming out with their own guides. And I freaked out. I was like, how am I going to compete with the United States Green Building Council, the same company that actually administers the exam? They write the questions, and now they're coming out with this study guide. I'm done for. And when they came out with the guides, I actually ended up selling more books on my end. And I was really confused at first about why that was happening. But what happened was a lot of people discovered that there was a study guide from the USGBC and they wanted to study for the exam, but then they started doing market research looking at what other exams were available, and everyone gravitated toward me because A, I was at the top of the search engines, but B, they saw that it was a guide by Pat Flynn, a guy who had passed the exam who was in the same position as them a couple of years back, versus buying a guide from, you don't even know their name. It's just a company, and there's no personality there. There's no experience of actually taking the exam. People resonated with me because I had a story, because I was Pat. Because then when they emailed me, they would say, "Hey Pat, I have this question," or Pat this, Pat that. So that's when I learned that it's really important to be somewhat personable online, to share a little bit of yourself, to connect with people, because people like to do business with people. And when you think about it, back in the small town days and in rural farm areas, here in the U.S., I got this from Gary Vaynerchuk. He talks about this, how in small towns, you shop at Bob's tool store. Even though his stuff is more expensive, you shop there because you know Bob, you know his family, and you guys are friends, and you don't mind spending a little bit more money or going out of the way to go to their store because it's Bob, as opposed to just going to the big old H Mart or whatever down the street. So that's another important point.
At that point, so just on that last point, so. Does that mean that your products were more expensive than the official lead competitor?
No, they were less expensive too. And I think that was another point. They were less expensive because I had less overhead. I was just a one-man show.
Absolutely.
Versus these companies who, they had to pay the editor, the underwriter, like whatever, to cover their costs and probably make even just a little bit of profit. For me, I ended up raising the price later on to $29.95 for the ebook, and then combined with the audio guide, it was $49.95. My fees were $5 a month total for eJunkie, which was the company that delivered the book, e-junkie.com. And then also 1.7% takeaway from PayPal for every transaction. That's it. So I still made like $40 every time I sold a $44 package. Okay,
so that's a great story, Pat. I just want to move on to when you started Smart Passive Income. We're already 30 minutes into the show, and I want to get into a lot more stuff to talk about. So you mentioned early on in the program that when you started Green Exam Academy and you shifted your mindset, you were looking for different opportunities, and you were talking about the point where an entrepreneur should understand that he or she can't do everything, right? So at that point, when you were looking for a lot of different opportunities and then you zeroed in on starting a smart passive income, talk to me about what those opportunities were and how did you make that decision to start Smart Passive Income and discard all the other opportunities?
Well, a lot of the opportunities I found were opportunities that were solely based on market research and understanding that if I went into those industries, there would be money in there. Now, there was one important part missing, was a passion or an interest in those particular topics. One of those topics was about, because it was related to sort of the exam stuff that I was doing, it was about memorization and sort of brain optimization, and that was becoming a hot topic. There were a lot of apps and games coming out on like Wii and whatever about improving your brain and stimulation of your brain. And so I was like, this is a perfect industry to go in. A lot of people were typing in keywords related to this, and I found the perfect domain to go with it. And I started writing on it, and about a month into it, I was just like burned out already. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even interested in this. I mean, why am I doing this? And then I answered that question. I was doing it for the money, and that's how I knew it wasn't the right thing to do anymore. So I dropped that. I started Smart Passive Income with no intention ever of making money from it, actually. The intention was to show people how I was doing it elsewhere, like on greenexamacademy.com and eventually on these other sites and other businesses that I have going on. And what ended up happening? People were going out of their way to try to find ways to pay me back because I was just giving away so much information, just like I did with Green Exam Academy for people who are interested the lead exam. On Smart Passive Income, I just started sharing everything. I was open to everything. There was no reason for me to hide anything because I wasn't trying to, bait and switch people or get people to just get in a little bit and then sell them something on the top of that. There's none of that, and there still is none of that. But people were going out of their way because they felt like they owed me. There's this thing, humans want to give back to people who give them something.
So give me an example of that. Just sorry to cut you off, but give me an example of that. Like, how were people paying you back?
Well, let me give you an example. I had built this website from scratch called Security Guard Training Headquarters. The domain is at securityguardtraininghq.com. And I showed people step by step on Smart Passive Income how I selected that niche, how I created the site, how I wrote the content for it, how I started to monetize it. And then eventually after 73 days, because this was experimental, but I was sharing everything along the way. It was just all out there. When I got to #1 in Google, I started making a couple $1,000s from this particular site through Google AdSense primarily. And now it's making money through affiliate marketing and Google AdSense as well, and also a job board. But that's when people started to find ways to pay me back from that free information I was giving them. How? Pretty much through affiliate marketing. Okay. So during that process of showing people how I created the website and how I built it and got it to #1 in Google, for example, in one of the posts where I talk about how I built the site, I talk about the hosting company that I use. And I got an affiliate link from my hosting company that I put in there. And I always disclose, hey, this is my affiliate link. If you click on this, I get money from the company. It's no extra cost to you, but I will earn a commission if you go through this link. You can choose to go through it if you want to. Most people will go through it. And I've gotten emails from people who tell me, Pat, I was going to buy this, and I was at the checkout. I was about to push the checkout button, and I totally remembered that you had an affiliate link for it. So I cleared my cache. I went on a different computer, and I went back to the website through your affiliate link because I really want to make sure you got credit for it. I just want to say thank you for, this is my small way of just saying thanks for all the great information you give me. And that is a common email I get every single week. And it just shows you the power of giving stuff away for free. So that's what I always do now. I always just give all my best stuff away for free. And, there's a couple ways to monetize that. You can give it, you can do it through affiliate marketing, through the processes, tools, services, products that you use along the way. Hopefully there's the stuff that's actually going to be helpful, which is always the case in my side. Or you can just give away so much where you eventually have a product at the end, like I did with Green Exam Academy, where people want to buy that. And the interesting story, going back to Green Exam Academy, is that when I had sold that book, the very first month I had sold that book, I got a few dozen emails, I think, a large number of emails from people saying, Pat, I already passed the exam. I don't need this book, but I wanted to buy it from you just as a way to say thanks. So people, again, going out of their way to say thanks for the free information I had given them.
That's great. That's just testimony to all the trust and brand that you've built with your audience. I just want to. This is going really well, Pat. Thanks for all this information.
Of course.
See, I just did that, right?
Yeah.
And I just thanked you for all the information because this is great. You're very good at this. I just want to understand from you what the results were in terms of smart passive income. You can talk about in terms of the number of readers, the number of visitors, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
And I want to quickly understand from you what were the factors that contributed to that growth. I know you've talked about some of them, building, giving stuff away for free, just adding value to readers, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of the other business stuff, what were the factors that contributed to the growth of smart passive income? And then once you're done with that answer, I'll go into a little more detail about other decisions you made.
Sure. Well, if you go to smartpassiveincome.com, you'll see an interesting thing at the top navigation area. It's called income reports. Every month I write a detailed income report on my blog about how much money I had made the previous month and where it all came from, along with the lessons and things that went good, things that went bad, and where I plan to go next. Now, a lot of people didn't understand why I did this. And the reason I do this is because I think of what I'm doing as like, I'm a company. And companies in the U.S. with stock who get people to invest in their stock, every quarter they share how their business is doing. They share their income, earnings report, to share with their investors, so they can make a good educated guess whether or not to invest with them or not, or kind of the status or state of the company. And yeah, people aren't investing money with me to read my stuff, but they're investing their time. And I think it's only proper that if I'm going to be talking about making money online, I want to show people exactly how much I'm making.
That's I totally get that. But when you made that decision, weren't you a little uncomfortable that the whole world is knowing, how much you're making and all that kind of stuff?
It's great for accountability. No, I wasn't worried at all, because when I'm out here looking for other people for advice, I want to know that they're talking to talk, but also walking the walk.
Absolutely.
And nothing negative has come out of this. And I've if you go back down to October 2008, you can see $7,906.55. March of 2009, $30,000, and then all of a sudden it drops. To it cuts 66%, and I wasn't afraid to share that because that's something that actually happened, and I talk about what happened, which was some stuff with my domain and the industry. But then I got it back up, and I share. You could see where things have happened and what caused those things, and it's the income reports. When I talk to a lot of people, they say they love the income reports, and yes, people like looking at the numbers. I've actually used a tool called ClickTale, ClickTale, which you can anonymously record visitors at random who come to your site and what they're looking at on your page. So you can actually see them scrolling through your screen. And I've recorded people who go to my income reports and they skip all the words and they just go right down at the bottom to see how much I've made. And then they go back up and start reading again. It's really funny. So they're all, the numbers are important. And this is sort of become the epitome of my sort of leadership role in this industry as someone who is transparent and honest. I mean, you can't get really more transparent than this. And I think in this industry in particular, the make money online, blogging, entrepreneurship business or industry, nobody was doing this. And that really helped.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you, if you knew of anybody else doing it. So nobody else was doing it. You think you were the first who started this, right?
Well, apparently I heard that a man named John Chow used to do this, but he stopped, and I think there were a few others who had done the same thing. But I've kept it going. These are always the top visited pages and the ones that people thank me for the most, which is great. And this was just one instance of when I'd done something different than everybody else. I mean, I subscribed to 30 plus email lists of all the top internet marketers out there when I was getting started, because I wanted to see what was working for them or what they were all doing. And what I noticed was there were these patterns where they would all share sort of the same sort of email every once in a while. When they all did a launch together, they would JV with each other, and they'd be very aggressive in their sales copy. They would use sort of the same types of headlines just to get me to open it, and they were really good, actually. But I noticed that every email was all about selling, sell, or just all about selling. And so I made a conscious decision for my email list, which is about 60,000 people on my email list right now. I don't sell on my email list at all, and that's how I get open rates between 50 and 70% every email every email I send out, because people understand that it's going to be filled with something useful. And apparently in the industry, the average open rate is 10 to 15%. So I'm getting a lot more than that. Again, it's just building that trust factor and using the email as another way to build a relationship with my audience and establish trust and transparency and authenticity.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. But now you might be wondering, well, why have an email list then? Well, it's for the relationship building, but also because it's a great way to build traffic and get traffic back to your site. And it's on my site where those affiliate links are located, just in case if you were wondering.
I just wanted to interject here because you've said something really, really important in terms of, you said there were 30 other people that you were following and everybody was the same. They were all doing JVs with each other. They were very salesy, and then you went in and you had personality. You were very transparent. You did not sell. I just want to make a point over here for people that are listening. This is a great way for if you're wondering about getting into a business which is in an industry which is extremely competitive and you want to stand out and make a name for yourself in the industry. I think one of the things that I'm hearing from a lot of my interviewees is that when you want to differentiate and stand out, you got to polarize yourself from the competition in terms of understanding what the problems are in that industry, and then being the exact opposite, just like you did, Pat. I think this is a fantastic example of how an upstart can sort of penetrate into a highly competitive industry just by being different and being authentic and being the exact opposite of the problems that the big industry sort of epitomizes. Am I right in this insight, Pat?
Oh, absolutely, 1,000% correct. I mean, that's been my strategy now. Just I see what other people doing, and I want to stand out of the crowd. And if you're going to blend in with everybody else, you're just going to get lost in the crowd. So you got to differentiate yourself, and there's no better way to do that than to put yourself where all your competitors are and see what they're doing, listening to their audience, and becoming a customer of theirs and understanding what it is that they could probably do better, that you could do better. You got to find holes in these markets, the pains and people in people that they still have despite all of these competitors that are out there, and you can fill in that hole. And you have an edge. You have an edge coming in late. A lot of people think, well, there's all these guys already doing it already. Well, good. They're going to show you what not to do. So that's my approach. That's great,
Pat. Yeah. So thanks for the SPI story as well. I just want to move on to growth choices. Now you've started SPI, Smart Passive Income, and you have a lot of things going on, right? You have a podcast. You have so many different
YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube channel. You got a lot of things going on. And in terms of growth, Pat, how do you decide? How do you make these choices? Okay, this is what I'm going to do next. You talked a little bit earlier about an entrepreneur wanting to do everything else, and in any business that you get into, there's so many things you can do. So how do you make those choices? Okay, this is exactly what I want to do next. And every initiative takes time. So you're going to invest a lot of time and your money on pursuing that initiative within your business, right? So talk to me about how your decision-making process of okay, this is what I'm going to do next.
Sure. Well, I remember when I started Smart Passive Income, within the first year, I wanted to give up on it like 6 times, I think. I would hit the publish button and I would just wonder, why was I doing this again? I struggled with the post, hit the publish button, and then I would think about the next time I'd have to struggle and write and hit the publish button again. And that was very common. And it was because I wasn't getting very much traffic at first. And the traffic was just on a plateau. And so I was looking for other ways to get some more traffic to my site and grow. And there were obviously a billion things you could do. But I started with one that I knew was just because everybody was talking about it. And that's what we always hear about these things that come out and everybody's talking about it. And that's a good indicator that that's something at least trying out and paying attention to. And I started on YouTube, actually. Everybody was talking about how much video is going to grow, and how much people were watching videos. And again, that was another way to stand out of the crowd, was doing videos. But I was really scared because I didn't know how to do videos. I wasn't comfortable with putting my face on the camera. So I sort of took a half step to YouTube when I got onto YouTube and started my channel. I did screen recordings. So what I actually did was I used a tool called ScreenFlow, and there's another one called Camtasia, in case you have a PC.
Yep.
You can record what's on your screen. So it's not your face that's on the screen. It's just whatever's on your screen. It just records that, and then you just talk over it. And that was a good sort of transition from just writing text to something more multimedia. And I feel like if you're trying anything new, whether it's video or podcasting or Pinterest or whatever, you want to give it a shot. You never know what it can do for your business, but you also want to give yourself kind of a bookend or a sort of what Dan Chip Heath called a tripwire. So you want to give it a little bit of time, a couple months perhaps, to test it out, really give it a chance. And if it's not going well, then you can just try something else. And that's the beauty of online business, is you can do that. And you just lose a little bit of time, but at least you tried it and you would learn from that experience. Well, I learned when I started my YouTube channel that it was awesome, that my audience just loved seeing what I was usually talking about in a blog post. And so I started doing more video, and it just exploded my traffic and took it off of that plateau. And then it started to plateau again a little bit more. And I was like, oh, well, I already doing YouTube videos. I already have my blog. What else? What other things can I do? And I had remembered how much a podcast had affected my life. You know, it was a podcast where I heard that success story and where I learned and got inspired to do online business. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to try a podcast. And so I was willing to give it a shot. And in July of 2010, I came out with, I think it was July 2011, I think. Wow, how do I not remember this? Let me go. Sorry. Anyways, so one of those years I came out with a podcast, and again, I was scared. The content was pretty terrible, but the more I did it, the better I got. Yeah, July 2010, July 19th, 2010 was my first episode. And now, doing the podcast for, since 2010, it's just been amazing. And it's actually been the number one way people have found my site now. And I actually did a survey on my blog asking readers, how did you first find out about my brand or Pat Flynn? And the number one way people found me was through my podcast.
It's my absolute favorite podcast in the entire internet.
Thanks,
you do a
that.
fantastic job, by the way.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Especially coming from the beginning where I was scared to get behind the microphone. And yeah, I had a little bit of practice from doing the YouTube videos, but it's just you and a microphone, and it's scary. But it has done amazing things for my business. Like, I had no idea it would have this much reach. I get emails every day, 1 or 2 emails every day from people saying they found me on iTunes. They discovered my podcast and now they're in my YouTube channel. They discovered my podcast and now they're on my blog, or whatever. And it's just so crazy. And I didn't understand why until I remembered about why it affected me so much. And it's just, there's something about the power of the voice, and specifically the podcast, where when you think about it, people are plugging your voice into their brains, like into their ears, or they're just listening to you, and there's no distractions. And yeah, they may be doing something else, but they're able to listen to you wherever they are, in their car, on a walk. They're just in their everyday lives, but they're listening to you, and they're listening to you for a long time. I mean, most people can only spend up to maybe 10 minutes watching a video. Most people can only spend maybe 20 minutes reading a blog post. But these podcasts, where you're speaking to every individual person who's listening to you, it seems, can go for over an hour. And that's huge for building a relationship with somebody. And whenever I go to conferences now and people come up to me, they say, hey, Pat, thanks for all you do. I listen to your podcast. I first discovered you on your podcast. Podcast. And when I was at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego this past month, they were talking about how podcasting is probably the number one hottest trend right now in social media and online business. And it's growing. And it's crazy when you think about it, because there's 420 million blogs in the US that are active, but only 250,000 podcasts. So it's still very new. Although it's been around for a while, it's still very new. So those are the things that have gotten me to grow. And the sort of pattern is yes, they're multimedia, but the real pattern is I was scared of them at first. And I found that every time I've been sort of scared to do something new, it's been amazing for my business, whether it was write that initial ebook, or write the income reports, or not sell to my email list like everyone else was doing, or start the podcast, or start the YouTube channel. Now, recently, it's been doing public speaking. I feared public speaking for so long. That's how I knew it was something I should be doing. And so I put myself on stage, and I asked to speak at these conferences, and I got to go. And I've just been learning everything I could. I hired a coach to help me. And now I just landed my first keynote presentation in October, and I'm getting paid to do this now. It's something I never imagined. Thank you. Something I never imagined would happen. From being deathly afraid of getting on stage to getting offered thousands of dollars to speak. It's just incredible. And it's because I'm putting myself out there, getting uncomfortable, and just trying new things, taking big, bold actions.
Trying new things, experimenting, that's pretty important, isn't it? Pat, I know I asked you for 45 minutes. We're a little over. Do you have another 10 minutes?
Yeah, dude. Like I'm here all night.
Okay, I gotta drop my wife off at the airport, so I don't have that much time. But we'll try and wrap up in 10
All right,
minutes.
sure.
You
Sorry,
talk,
I like to talk a lot.
hey, this is great. You can talk as much as you want. I wanted to ask you. See, when I've been following you for about your blog and your podcast for about the past year, and when I think of Pat Flynn, I think of success, success, success all the time. Green Exam Academy, smart passive income. You just grow from strength to strength. But I want to ask you, like, what one thing do you feel in the past 5 years since you started Green Exam Academy really threatened your business? And I know you talked a little bit about that the official lead competitor coming in, but has there been a time in the last 5 years where you've really been afraid or scared that you've faced such a challenge that it sort of threatens your entire business? I'm talking about your biggest challenge so far.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. There's two things I want to give you. One of them is going to be really surprising, actually, and sort of scary to say, but I'll leave that one second, so keep listening. But the first one is when the Green Exam Academy is going really well. This is in 2009, making $20,000-$30,000 a month at this point. I got a very nice letter, I'm being sarcastic here, in my mailbox from the USGBC telling me to stop doing what I was doing. And I just freaked out. And I just saw like all this legal jargon that I didn't even understand. And my head just started spinning. And then the thoughts in my head were like, am I way in over my head? Like, am I even qualified to have my own business? Should I even be doing what I'm doing? Should I just go back to corporate world where it's safe, where all I have to do is what someone else tells me to do, and I don't have to worry about any of this stuff? And that's what I was thinking. And then I got hooked up with a lawyer. I just found him on Google, and I called him up, and a local one here in San Diego. I sent him the letter, and he basically told me that it was a cease and desist letter for the fact that I was using lead in my domain name. So it wasn't actually originally called Green Exam Academy. It was originally called inthelead.com, just because I thought that was kind of clever. But this company wasn't happy with the fact that I was using their trademark lead in the domain name, and that's something you probably shouldn't do. Even though there are sites I've learned out there, Blizzard, for example, who does World of Warcraft, they don't care if you use their trademark Blizzard in your domain name for World of Warcraft or anything like that, or that's what I hear apparently. But other sites like eBay, they cracked down on it, and Lead was doing the same thing. So again, all those thoughts were going through my head, and that really threatened my business. Not only because it was a cease and desist letter, and they were telling me to shut down, but because my head was telling me maybe I shouldn't even be doing this because I don't know any of this stuff. And that's when I learned to have other people on board who can fill me in when things like this happen, like a lawyer. So I have a lawyer I can go to now when any questions or things like that may possibly come up. Same thing with a CPA. I have a CPA on board with me who keeps track of my books and does everything and all that stuff for me, just because it's way in over my head, especially with all the different businesses I have going on. But what ended up, to finish that story, eventually what happened was I ended up changing the domain name to Green Exam Academy.
Okay.
I did a 301 redirect long enough so that Google understood that Green Exam Academy was a new site and kept all the same traffic, kept all the same numbers and rankings. And then I got a second cease and desist letter from the USGBC saying, well, you can't use inlead.com to forward. You have to get rid of it, and it can't do anything. So I even think if you go to inlead.com right now, it says like site unavailable, or I don't even know. But
is this the second challenge that you were talking about?
No.
Okay. We're still in the first story. Okay.
That's like challenge 1.1, I guess.
Okay.
But the second challenge really was having kids. That was a huge challenge because it just threw my world off. I mean, I loved it. It was just probably the most beautiful moment of my life, having my son, and then again having my daughter a few years later. I wouldn't trade that for anything. Family is the most important thing to me, but it totally just messes with your schedule and your ability to focus and your ability to get things done and your ability to, complete projects. It's been a whirlwind and a crazy ride. And I think the challenge has been trying to balance that life as a father and a husband versus an entrepreneur. And we talked about this a little bit in the beginning. That line is blurred sometimes, and so I've learned and I've done things, and I've purposely have done these strategies that have helped me separate my business life with my family life, so I can be focused on my business when I'm in my business. I can be focused on my family and be with my kids when I'm actually physically with them, because that's really important to me. So it was my kids. That was a big challenge, but I've sort of learned and, again, communicated with my wife and to have a schedule where I have time for work. And, right now it's really late at night, but that's the only time it works, where it would allow me to spend time with my kids during the day. And I don't feel bad about that. And it's probably going to change, when they start going to school and stuff. And as a result, I'll have to adapt. And I think, really that's, the whole theme of all these challenges is just, being an entrepreneur means you have to learn how to adapt to different situations, so, whether it's stuff that happens in your life or in your business. So
very well said, Pat. You know what? My wife and I are expecting our first child in August, so I appreciate the advice.
Congratulations. I didn't mean to scare you if that scared you. But just,
a little scared, that's all. Just a little scared. No, we're just amazing. Super excited.
I think what I lost in sort of time and sleep was made up for in just love and motivation for them. So it sort of balances out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of the things that it's going to change our lives, and we're very excited about it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Pat. See, before we move on to the last segment of the show, where I ask you for 3 actions people can take to start a business, I just want to ask you one question. Right, in your book, Let Go, right, you talk about how passionate you were about architecture, and that's how you got into the business, and that's how not business, but that's how you got into the industry, and that's why you became wanted to become an architect, etc., etc. You were obsessed with it. So now, 5 years later, your primary career is not architecture. You're doing all these other different things. The reason I'm asking you this question is that a lot of people when they're thinking about starting a new business and they're thinking about a 9 to 5, they think about, okay, I want to do something. I want to find my passion, my purpose, and I'm not going to stop until I find that career, right? So do you know what I'm trying to say? Like you were in the same situation. You were obsessed with architecture, so you got the perfect job. You were very happy with it, and then you had to change, and now you're doing something completely different. So can you talk about this situation, just in terms of how people can sort of wade through this problem that they may be facing as well?
Sure. I mean, I loved architecture. I still miss it sometimes, but I still get the same feelings now from when I was doing architecture. And when you think about it, as an architect, and I talk about this in the book, I loved being able to plan something out and build it and let people experience it. In architecture, that's working on the drawings and working so hard and getting all detailed with math and whatever, engineers and all that stuff. And then having people being able to walk through that building, that was my dream. Something that I had spent so much time on, and then have people walk through it and experience it and have it become a part of their lives. In online business, I've learned that that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not building buildings, but I'm building products, or I'm building software or ebooks or blogs where people put those things into their daily lives and they use them, and they they symbolically are walking through them, sort of like their buildings, and they are, because I've built them myself. So my passion, I discovered, was not necessarily in architecture, as much as I love it and I miss it, and I still love looking at buildings and pretending to build them. And one day I would love to sort of design my own dream house. But I get the same feelings in what I'm doing now, and I still feel the same passion. It's just sort of manifested in a different way. So I think the advice there would be to whatever whatever you're passionate about, try to understand why deep down you're passionate about it. And a good trick to use comes from a trick. I can never remember the name of this. It's not really a trick, but it's a method or a strategy that the Japanese use in their Toyota factory.
Ask 5 whys, yeah.
Yes. So you want to ask the 5 whys. I always do this with when I'm talking to other people about why they want to do what they do. Mm-hmm. So you basically just ask yourself, well, why do you like doing architecture? And then you just say, you answer that, and then you keep going deeper. Well, why that? And why that? And why that? And typically around the 4th or 5th time, you get to the root of the situation, and that is something you could take wherever you go into different industries.
And that's such fantastic advice, Pat. I couldn't agree more. That is. I'm sure that will be helpful to a lot of people. So thank you for sharing that. I want to get into the last segment of the show. This is where I want to ask you for 3 specific actions people can take, preferably keeping in mind people in their 9-to-5 jobs who are unfulfilled and unhappy with their jobs. 3 specific actions they can take to start a business. I know you've talked about a lot of things in the course of this interview. The first thing you said was, putting good stuff out there. That's the first step. You also talked about how important it is to have a mastermind. But if you can just summarize all that and give us 3 specific actions to start a business, what would they be?
Well, the first step, I feel, would be to find an example of something that you might want to do too, whether it's somebody who has another business like that you're interested in, or maybe has a business model that you're interested in. Find somebody, a mentor, I guess you could say. They don't have to be, a legit official mentor. It could just be somebody who you are either looking up to, or who can provide inspiration for you, or is giving you information directly or indirectly to help you just discover whatever it is that you should be doing. And again, that's sort of general, because everybody is going to resonate with different kinds of people. And so what that does is it gets you inspired, and it gets you, gives you sort of and indirectly. So that's kind of a vague answer, but it's really important. I've had a lot of mentors, growing in my business. That's different than a mastermind group. As much as that is important, it's also important to have that sort of mentor, that example. For me, it was Cornelius, and also the guys from Internet Business Mastery. Those were the guys that I was like, okay, I got to do it like that, or they're there. It can happen. Why can't I do it? I should be able to do it. So that's all that stuff's really important. Another important thing is to just visualize what your perfect life would be. I think a lot of people go into business not realizing the path, not realizing what the goal actually is. And a lot of people put the monetary goal in there. I want to be a millionaire or whatever. What does that really mean? I mean, it's not about the money you have, but what's your lifestyle going to be like? What will make you happy? And that's really important, because that's sort of thinking about the end first. And when you think about the destination, that affects your path. So if for example, you would be completely happy living a life, making only $80,000 a month, $80,000 a year, and that would be $60,000 a year, whatever. You would be completely happy with that lifestyle, because where you are and where you want to be, where you want to live, what you want to do every day, where you want to go eat, who you're going to be with, that's gonna that's going to be different. The type of business and how hard you have to work for it is going to be different than if you wanted an $8 million mansion and 5 Lamborghinis and stuff. It's obviously going to be a different path to get there. But a lot of people just go for it without understanding what exactly they're going for. And I think once you understand what the goal is, you can sort of break it down into different milestones and, find that path to get there. Again, that's not really a concrete example, because it's hard to give business advice to people without knowing the actual person. So I'm trying to give you sort of general things that I feel have been most important for me. And for anybody that I've learned to do business. And then thirdly, I think, it's kind of a combined one. You want to educate yourself. You want to get into people and motivated and understand from other people's examples. You want to read books. You want to listen to podcasts. But you also need to execute. You need to take what you learn just from like whatever you listen to in this podcast, take it and use it. If you don't do that, you're just wasting your time. You must take some kind of action, whether that's putting yourself out there or starting a blog. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Perfection is the enemy of success. You want to go out there knowing that you're probably going to fail, or it's probably going to be ugly, but at least you're putting yourself out there. because if you don't put anything out there and you're just trying to be perfect, there's nobody's there to, there's nothing there. 90% of something is 0% to the end user, your eventual target audience. Mm-hmm. So don't worry about perfection. A good book to read is called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
It's a fantastic
He talks a lot of, fantastic book. He talks a lot about sort of the, it's sort of a backwards way of building a business, really starting out with just what they call the minimum viable product, just so they can get people in there to help them build it to what it should be without trying to put all the bells and whistles into something where those things might not even be used. So you get your first users in there. Again, that's the whole important thing. Build, learn, and rebuild.
Beautiful. Pat Flynn, thank you so much for your time and your insights. People are going to love this. They're going to find you and your insights very, very helpful. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can go to smartpassiveincome.com, of course. You can read my blog there, or you can also check out patflynn.me, which is sort of a new personal site that I have that talks about some of the new projects, including Let Go. If you want to pick up Let Go, it's there as well. So.
I want to personally recommend Let Go to those who are watching. I've read it. You can get it on the Snippet application, I believe. For some reason, I haven't seen the videos yet, Pat, even though I updated the application. But the text, the story is fantastic. For anybody that is in their 9-to-5 and unhappy, unfulfilled, and like Pat said, the first action you got to take is find an example. For those of you watching, make Pat Flynn your example. There can be no other better example.
Thank you. Well, if that resonates with you, then that'd be cool. But there are other amazing people out there who could be your example too. So as far as Let Go, you can also pick it up on Kindle right now. It just got released on Kindle, and it had become the #1 best-selling small business and entrepreneurship book fairly recently. So I'm very thankful for that.
Amazing.
And so thank you for your support.
So thank you, Pat. Thanks a lot for your time, and I wish you well in everything that you do. I look forward to all your content, especially your podcasts.
Thank you. And if you need any sort of, just want to talk about being a dad and what that means, I'm here for you, buddy.
Absolutely. I will get in touch with you. I'll take you up on that.
All
Take
right.
care, Pat, and have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, that was Pat Flynn of smartpassiveincome.com. For complete show notes and a summary of this case study, go to radicaltribe.com/17. That's the number 17, radicaltribe.com/17. Also, you can subscribe to the mailing list by going to radicaltribe.com and typing in your email address so you never miss a show. Thanks for listening. Until next time, goodbye.